Have you ever struggled to push yourself and achieve your fitness goals while also practicing self-compassion along the way? We know that a lot of times it can feel like those two elements of our goals might be in conflict. We want to push ourselves to achieve fitness and physique goals. Maybe it's weight loss, maybe it's a certain way we look, a certain way we're able to perform. But we also want to be able to feel good about ourselves. We want to feel like we can love ourselves or feel worthy or just feel at peace in our body. And a lot of times we've trained ourselves to think that they have to be in conflict. When in fact, if we learn how to put in the right practices, we can become elite. We can achieve in our fitness and also feel grounded in our mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. To show you how to do that, I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to let my amazing wife tell you her story of transformation, how she was able to change her relationship with her body, change her relationship with fitness, achieve amazing transformational results for herself and losing 40 pounds and becoming a nationally qualified bikini competitor, all while choosing self-compassion and loving herself through the journey. So Lindsey, super excited to be able to share your journey with everyone.
Yeah, I'm excited to share and actually pull it apart a little bit. I hope that it's helpful for people.
Now, when we look at your journey, obviously it's expanded over the years. You've achieved a lot of things, but if you could go back to the start, when did your, let's say, fitness journey start, or when did your relationship with your body start?
Yeah, so actually I think that my story is probably very similar to a lot of women. There was someone somewhere who pointed out that my body was not acceptable in some way, shape, or form. Going all the way back to 10, 11 years old was my first memory of my body being judged as correct or incorrect. And I'm trying to be mindful of language here because I guarantee that the person I'm referring to, it was my doctor at the time, meant absolutely no harm by her statement. But essentially, I was sitting in the doctor's office, and at the end of my annual checkup, my mom's sitting in a chair, the doctor's over on her swivel stool, and she points to the screen, and she's like, "Okay, Lindsey, there's a couple different lines here. I want to show you this. Come over here." And I remember exactly what I weighed, too, which is wild. It's vivid. I was 123 pounds, around 10 years old. And she points to the chart, and she goes, "Okay, so Lindsey, this line right here, this whole area, this is the healthy weight. Now, up here, this is overweight, okay? And now, right there, that little dot that's charted, that's where you are right now. And we're right almost at the edge of being too overweight. So we have to work on this." And that's all she said. But at that time, I just distinctly remember this like emotion of panic coming up, like, oh no. And probably this little bit of embarrassment too of, oh, what did I do wrong? What happened? How did I get overweight? What does that even mean? And whatever conspired after that, I don't remember. But I do remember that very quickly thereafter, we got a new treadmill. My parents must have had some dialogue around that purchase because we were not wealthy at the time. We didn't have like upgraded cars or appliances or anything like that. So that must have been a really big deal, bottom line. And after that, I just started walking on the treadmill every day. Started running, I started walking, and eventually I lost, I think it was probably only a few months, I lost 20 pounds. As like this tween, right? And I was super proud of myself. I was like, all right, I'm good now, right? And when you're that age, you really only have like that language of it's either good or it's bad. There's not really any quantification of why it's good or bad or what that means, but it was just my body's bad. Okay, now my body's good because I lost weight. And that was kind of my first association to being smaller being a good thing, or losing weight was really important. And my body, for whatever reason, I started to build that story that was typically going to be overweight. So that's kind of where it actually started. And there was definitely a ripple effect to that. I mean, through my teenage years, that led to a lot of behavior around eat less, move more, right? And that was just something that I expected I was supposed to do. I also watched my mom, who was always on a diet or always doing cleanses. Sometimes I'd do like a cleanse with her. There's like this lemonade cleanse that you drank lemon juice, water, cayenne pepper, and maple syrup. And I had no idea what a cleanse meant, but I knew you lost weight doing it. And so I'd do these 1 to 3 day, 5-day lemonade cleanses. And it'd just be this little contest of like, how long can you go just drinking the lemonade? Wild. And you just have no idea what that means, or that it could maybe not be helpful for your relationship with food because you're not aware yet. You're not conscious.
Yeah, well, you don't even understand that you have a relationship with food.
Totally.
You barely have a relationship with your body.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the introduction, like teenage years, at least part of it. There's plenty more once you get into high school, but that was kind of leading up to 14, like 10 to 14, those 4 years.
And so if that's your early childhood, what happens in your teenage years to steer your body image or the view you had of yourself towards something that you felt like you still had to change?
It's important to know a little bit of context because I became really self-conscious for many reasons. It wasn't just because of my body. It was also because I was homeschooled in a very private Christian community up until high school. So I go through this whole body change through the years of puberty as well, right? Obviously 10 to 14 is the puberty ages. And then I go to high school, public high school, for the first time. And my best friend is also naturally very, very lean and small. So I go into high school, and what's really interesting that's different about high school in the 2010 versus high school now is that you don't have the opportunity to look at yourself all the time. So what I remember in the high school years was I kind of had like these little temp checks every once in a while of how my body looked through school photos. So every year I kind of could look at myself objectively through an image and determine whether I was good, bad, right? Again, that same language of like, am I overweight or do I look good? It was those two options. And I think it was my sophomore year, my second year of high school, where I took those photos beginning of the school year, and I thought I looked pretty good that day. I remember I was wearing like this green flowy shirt. My hair was crimped, looked fantastic. I take the school photo and I get that photo back, and I distinctly remember looking at it and being like, oh my gosh, my body fills up this whole photo, like the whole image. I was like, I am huge. And I just remember looking at that and being like, oh my gosh, that's not okay. You're back again. You got to fix this. And after that, I only knew what I knew. So it was eat less, exercise more. So I loved volleyball. I loved cheer. I didn't love softball, but I played softball. And so I started getting myself moving. I started going outside for runs sometimes. I would go to the gym. I would go to practice. I would try to exercise as much as I could. And simultaneously, I tried to eat as little as I could while still getting by. And I just developed this idea that was the only way. Because you just take what you know to the extreme at that age.
Yeah, well, you got to think that you got rewarded for having a lack of knowledge. Right? So your lack of knowledge around macros, calories, strength training, healthy relationship with food, those weren't even in the conversation.
Yeah, not even in the vocabulary.
So thinking eat less, move more is like a very simple way, but you're overly aggressive. It's like, yeah, eat 600 calories and do an hour of cardio. It's like that was your concept of what was required to lose weight. Mm-hmm. And there was no other reality around that.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, again, there's so many layers to body image, and I'm sure everybody can think back to their story. Also, at this same time period, I had rebelliously started dating because I wasn't allowed. I started dating this boy who was very, very emotionally unwell and very emotionally abusive. And it destroyed my image or my confidence. He never told me I was overweight or didn't look good, but he put me down for a lot of other things. And so I started to shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink. And so the only things I felt like I had control over maybe were what I was eating or how much I was moving. And those also became just like ways that I could do something for
Yeah.
myself, right? Especially when your world starts to shrink. If you've experienced any type of abuse, a lot of it you either you react to that usually through overreacting and getting very angry, or you get very small. And so my reaction was to get very small, like talk to less people. I thought, I must have the best that I can have, and it just directly correlated to like I don't deserve anything better.
Meanwhile, the best that she could have was sitting in her and right next to her in math.
Yeah, right next to me in math class.
That was me.
Brian was there. Yeah, so it's like you can see how those layers just stack up on each other to by the time you actually become semi-self-aware when you're like 17, you just don't even know what to do with yourself, right?
So you go through that though, but when do you decide to actually start changing? Because you go through this period where you're like, hey, you go through the abusive relationship and you start to emerge, right? So that's something that I clearly remember being in your life is like you started to break out of that relationship. You started to become more bold. You got a tattoo that said beautiful on you.
That is true. I did do that. What led to that? I know that there was a series of events, but I'm like, where did my mindset start to shift? Because that sophomore year when I first looked at that photo and said, oh my gosh, you're filling up the whole image, you're overweight. I went through the next school year and I lost 20 pounds. It was 2025, something like that. And I posted, when Facebook was pretty new, I posted a transformation photo. I was like, all right, 25 pounds gone. So proud of myself. Like that was my post. And nobody posted anything in general, let alone a transformation photo at that point in time. So I was super excited about that. And then I had subsequently gained it back. And then I lost it again, like my junior year leading into my senior year. And somewhere along the lines, I recognized that I was not doing myself a service by eating nothing, exercising for 2 hours a day, and accepting this abusive relationship with this person at 16 years old. Somewhere along the lines, I was just like, this is not okay. And I ended up getting to my goal weight, which was like 127, not in a healthy way, but I ended up getting there. I was playing sports. I was doing really well. And I just remember being like, okay, one day I'm done. And I was done with the abusive relationship. I broke that off. And I was like, I'm going to do what I want. And it was this emergence. And I recognized that I needed to start get better care of myself, like spiritually, emotionally. Physical was kind of more on the back burner at that point. Yeah. It was like top priority first. But in that senior year of high school, I made a ton of friends. I left that relationship, and then he had, I think, graduated at that point too. So I just really focused on doing what I wanted to do and taking care of myself. I did theater for the first time. I found the college I wanted to go to. There was just so much good that year that led into the next stage of that season.
Yeah, because it didn't last.
It didn't last. Yeah. The body didn't last. The confidence didn't last because I didn't have a healthy life, right? At this stage. And this is a good introduction to healthy living. But that's not where the story even starts or ends at all, because I went into the summer before college and I was introduced to drinking. I had never really drank much before, but I drank that whole summer. I was like, I'm going to do what I want, have fun. And I didn't understand anything about health. So I put on like 25 pounds in a summer. And then I'm going to college, in a college that's, I don't know, what is that, 20 times, 40 times?
We had a school of about 500
people. We go to UNH. I go to UNH. It has 20,000 people. And I'm going into a major that's all men, engineering degree, super challenging. And now I'm super self-conscious again going into college. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how did that happen? I remember it just being almost like it was the blink of an eye. And I've gained all this weight. And I had just had no awareness or idea of how on earth that happened, which I actually hear a lot of people describe as their situation of when they feel like they fell off. All of a sudden, it's been 3 years. It's like, yeah. And in that case, usually it's a lack of self-awareness and mindfulness and even knowledge too, because I didn't know that me drinking and overeating led to me gaining all this weight. Right? You just don't know. So that was kind of the experience going into college. But I still had more confidence than I had before.
Yeah, you started to push yourself.
I started to push myself, but there was clearly still missing pieces, right? So we go into college. In college, there's a whole new slew of challenges around trying to fit in, trying to make yourself someone that other people like, which is the same thing, right? You're drinking, you're becoming someone that people can get along with and enjoy your company, even if you're awkward, right? So you drink to make yourself more fun. There's food everywhere, right? And food,
tasty food
that you don't have to pay for.
That you don't have to cook, any of that stuff.
Yeah, that you don't have to cook. And I just had no idea what to do with all of that. And I went through the first year of school, and it was hard because I felt so uncomfortable. And there were a couple of, again, little points where either I took a photo and that was my timestamp of like, you still don't look good. Or now I had strangers calling me out for not looking good because you're in college and everybody's drunk and nobody cares what they say.
What are the specific examples there?
Well, there were 2 points. I think it was either the end of my freshman year or my sophomore year of college, but I was going out in the evening, which meant walking to a house party wearing a tight mini skirt and a crop top because that's what you do. And someone yelled out the window at me and my friends and was like, "Hey ladies, how you doing?" or something like that. And none of my friends were going to say anything. I'm the boldest, so I yell back like, "Hey, we're doing good. How are you?" And he's like, "Not you." And I was just like so sad. I was like, "Oh, okay. I must be the ugly friend." And I was so sad, but I was like, "All right, nope, that's just a mean person. It's going to be okay." But then it wasn't that long after that. It was a few months later. The same thing happened, except I was walking, similar outfit choice, with a bunch of friends, and somebody rolled down their window and screamed out the window as a girl, "You fat SLUT," and just kept driving. And it was obvious that I was trying to tell myself they weren't talking to me, but they absolutely were. And so at this time, I'm like really wrestling with myself. I'm like, okay, you just like, it's hard for you to lose weight. Like, this is just your story. This is how your body is. I mean, you're probably like being mean to yourself. You probably look better than you think you do. Like, you're trying to tell yourself all these things, but then you have these little jabs that remind you that no, you actually do look how you actually are overweight, or like you do look how you think you look. And that's like a really hard pill to swallow. So that's where I ended up my sophomore year of college. And it kind of kept stacking from there. We talk a lot about what it takes to actually make decisions.
Yeah.
Right? And there's little points in this story where you're like, oh, well, where'd you change? It's like there's points where I made some decisions.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, no.
I think that what you're alluding to, and I've talked about this oftentimes on the podcast, is oftentimes we don't change until the pain of staying where we are is far greater than the pain that will be the byproduct of change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a frequent quote. It's like, until the pain of change becomes greater or less than the pain of staying where you are, you're not going to change. And I think those little cuts, if we don't acknowledge them, that they hurt, if we don't acknowledge that I'm not really where I want to be, I'm not how I want to be, this isn't how I want to be perceived, I can make up stories, right? I can say, well, that was just a mean person, or that didn't really hurt my feelings, and I can mask it. But if something bothers you, it's like eventually you reach the point where you either stay how you are, and that's a more global concept, meaning like it could be with the way you handle food, the way you handle your body, alcohol, certain friends, relationships, or you confront the pain and you change.
Yeah.
For you, what were the moments that you think, because there's really a few I think of they've alluded to that compound after that? What are 1 or 2 moments where like you start to hit breaking point?
Yeah. And it's great you said that about you have to acknowledge the cuts. I think it's Alex Hormozy, but there's probably plenty of people who talk about it. Alex Hormozy says that if someone insults you and it offends you, it's probably because at some capacity you know they're right. If somebody insults you and it's not at all true, like totally out of alignment with you, who you know you are, it's going to roll off your back pretty easy because you're going to be like, they don't know what they're talking about. But if someone says something to you and it really does bring up something in you, then there's something about that you believe to be true, or you have hoped it's not true, but it actually could be. And it's an opportunity to examine at its best, right? So those couple of jabs, like, they started building that frustration and tension with myself of, there's got to be something you can do here to better yourself or feel good in your body. But then after that, it really was just like a build the tsunami to the point where that wave crashes, because it was March after those two events. So it was a few months later, the spring semester. And I went on spring break for the first time with some friends, going down to Florida. At the time, I was very self-conscious, but I had started getting introduced to working out a little bit more. I had a friend who was a runner who kind of brought me into the gym, and I got a little bit more comfortable in there. So I was kind of trying to make some changes because those two jabs really upset me. So I was like, okay, I need to start like going to the gym or eating salads or something. I had no idea. But then I go on spring break, and I was like, okay, you've been like working out. I even went for a run that vacation. And I remember like thinking to myself, okay, like you look a little bit better. You look okay. You're wearing a bathing suit. You're with your girlfriends. Everyone's drinking. Everyone's partying. It's college, right? And we took photos as a group with a couple of our guy friends. And I sucked in so hard and was like, okay, you're going to look fine. This was obviously all consuming. So I really, really resonate and understand people who are so at their bandwidth, at their wit's end, because their body image or their food is constantly on their mind, because it was totally all consuming for me. And when we take this photo, I'm like sucking in with all of my might. And we go to look back at the photo, and I'm like completely crushed. I'm like, I look so bad. I was like, oh my gosh, I do not look good. I'm not happy with this. And I remember even going to post it and like trying to blur it out a little bit, because I was like, okay, too much cellulite, like let's blur it out. So it was pretty intense. So that happens. And I'm like, all right, we got to figure this out, Lindsey. We got to figure this out. And again, I still have no idea what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. What was your concept of what you should do?
I think that my concept at that time of what I should do, which I believe I did do after that, was go to the gym, work out 4 times a week.
And what would that mean?
Go on the Stairmaster for 45 minutes,
Brutal.
4 times a week. Get off the Stairmaster and do a 15-minute ab workout. Okay, do that 4 times a week, 5 times if you're good. Okay, and then make sure you're eating healthy, which at the time, with the dining hall and all its glory, a healthy day of eating to me, which doesn't sound terrible, but you'll also understand why it didn't work, was an apple for breakfast with peanut butter and Nutella. Like a ton of peanut butter and Nutella, like probably like 4 servings at least. That was breakfast. There's probably a protein bar or something for a snack. At lunch, I had a massive salad that had, it was like a huge bowl, but it was like a Cobb salad. So I'd put like a bunch of boiled eggs, a bunch of bacon, chickpeas, quinoa, rice, and a bunch of dressing. So probably like a 1,500 calorie salad at least. Have some kind of probably like fruit or something for a snack afterwards, like in the afternoon. And then I would have a normal dinner that was like a meat and a carb. And then after that, I would go to late night, which was just a snack bar at school. And I was like, all right, well, I'll have the healthy option. I'll have eggs and a couple pieces of French toast. And I had like a mountainous bowl of eggs, which isn't one egg, couple eggs, not bad at all. It's not unhealthy, but processed scrambled eggs from a diner and a whole bowl of them is like 1,000 calories. It was like so much food. But at the time, that was like my healthy diet combined with my healthy exercise plan, which I don't know. Equals 0.
Yeah, equals you're not
0.
making any progress.
Yeah, because you're eating 3,000 calories and you're trying to go burn them off, and then you're just ending up back at 0.
And then you get frustrated.
And you feel defeated, and nothing changes.
So that's where you're at with your strategy at this point.
Yes.
So you're thinking, okay, see the picture. I need to go and keep working at this, Nothing is working. Oh my goodness. I thought I was working so hard. But where do you actually hit
Full
your
breaking
breakthrough?
point. Full breaking point and breakthrough was on my 20th birthday. I had spent these last couple years really trying to fit in, make friends, be the person other people liked, while still kind of working on myself because I was working out and trying to get good grades. And I was trying to find this, like, who am I? What am I doing? What do I value? And none of those are conscious questions, but I am trying to figure it out at the time. And I get to this climax of my 20th birthday where I think to myself, okay, I've got all these, quote, friends. Somebody's going to throw me a birthday party. And a couple of my girlfriends are saying, like, hey, we're going to go out. And so I have this whole story in my head, like, all right, I'm going to act like I'm surprised. Like, so there's definitely going to be a birthday party for me somewhere. And we show up at this random person's apartment. No one knows it's my birthday. No one even knows my name except for like a couple people. And I'm so sad. And I'm trying to mask it because I got all dressed up and was all excited. And so I drank a whole bottle of alcohol, a whole bottle of Ciroc specifically by myself. Had the handle, just drank the whole thing. And I was like, my life sucks. Nobody likes me. And it's very sad. And at the end of the night, after we go through the whole evening, my two girlfriends that brought me to that place, they were like, take a seat. We're going to give you a beer shower. And so they crack beer and they pour it all over me. And I'm like, ha ha ha, so funny. I love it. And in my head, I'm like, this is it. I am absolutely done being this type of person. This will not be my life. I will not be an alcoholic. I will not drink. I will not be unhealthy. I will not be this person. I don't like this person. That was the actual breaking point.
And meanwhile, on the other side of the coin,
what were you doing?
I am in the process of bodybuilding. I had lost my 40 pounds probably at this point. I was about 8 to 10 weeks out from a contest. I had my first modeling photo shoot. I had just become recently single. And I started Snapchatting you.
Yes. Why did you Snapchat me? Why did you message me?
The truth is that I used to go to UNH all the time because I went to St. A's. And I would go and hang out with our friend Chris. And I would always hope that Lindsey Rego was there. I'd always be like, she's cute. She's pretty. We had talked your senior year of high school. I was a freshman in college. We had talked. I went to her Wizard of Oz play by myself. All right? So think of this. You are a single 18-year-old, 19-year-old, and you go to a play for a high school. Why do you do that? It's not because you're a supportive friend. It's because you have an interest in the young lady. I went to the play, and I was like, oh, my gosh, you did such a great job. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. You're a really good friend, or something like that. I was like, whoa.
I said, thank you so much for coming.
But I think you had already been talking to one of the guys I went to high school with, so I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to leave it alone. But, yeah, you just went right over your head. So I had already been interested in you. And then in college, I was with someone, and then that whole thing happened. We broke up. So I'm single. I'm doing my first fitness model shoot. So I Snapchat you. And then we arrive back home for the college, or for the summer, right? From college.
From college for the summer, yes.
And I had started my first personal training business. I had started training people. We were hanging out with some mutual friends. And I was really nervous to train people. And I was also nervous to train women because I was like, well, I have some experience with training, but never trained women. How is this going to work? How to make them feel comfortable, X, Y, Z. And then I asked you to give me some help with that, and then kind of give your feedback on the rest of the story from there, because I was going to intersect.
Well, yes. Well, one important note, and you can see this through the timeline, but one little nugget I would give is that sometimes you reach a breaking point, and as much as you want to take action, you don't actually have the solution yet. So that breaking point happens in April. Brian reaches out to me and we connect and communicate sometime around May. Sometime around May, like a couple weeks later, but it was very close. And then we stay connected for a month, Nothing really happens. And then what he's talking about is June, just before June, end of May, early June. He asks me, because we've just been chatting back and forth. I didn't think much of him at the time, so he was really trying to work his magic. But he asked me if I would be willing to help him out just for the day, if he could take me through a workout.
Honest question, by the way. It was not a workaround. We'd already been talking.
It wasn't a sales tactic. It wasn't a sales tactic, but yes, we'd already been flirting a little bit and communicating a little bit. But he asked me if he could take me through a leg workout. And at the time, I was like totally nervous because I'm like, I'm going to make a fool of myself. But remember, I've already had this like breakdown and breakthrough of this is not the person I want to be. And I just don't know what to do to feel better about myself and feel better about my body. But when he introduces this idea of a leg workout, I'm like, whoa, I've never done that before. I didn't know anything about strength training. I didn't even know that was an option. Like, it was just totally over my head. So when he introduced me to this idea and he's like, oh, can I walk you through a leg workout? I'm like, hey, well, I might make a fool of myself, but at least I'll learn something. When we go through that workout, it was a total epiphany for me. You were a great person. That wasn't the epiphany, but you were great. He takes me through this leg workout, and my epiphany is, oh my gosh, this is how you work. This is how you're supposed to work out. And I just had never even considered that there was another way other than the Stairmaster and ab workouts. I had all the Pinterest boards in the world, but I had no idea how much knowledge I was actually missing. Up until that point, I started to think, oh, there must be other missing pieces. Like, this must be one of the missing pieces and why I've never been able to get results or get my body to where I want it to be. And after that, it just like the whole world started to open up a little bit. Like, I could see a little light at the end of the tunnel. Like, oh my gosh, you're not, because I had this whole narrative that my body was broken, my metabolism was slow, that I could eat nothing and still not lose weight. Like, I had all these limiting beliefs, all these stories around why my body was never going to be in shape. So that was the actual story.
And then the summer happens, right? So you start now getting momentum.
Yes.
Let's talk about you have like the blueprint, right? We talk about you need a blueprint, you need a guide, you need to also be able to have some implementation, right? If you're lacking any of those three things, you're going to be off track, because you can have someone who says, "Hey, here's what you do," but you don't really have a plan, right? Or you can have a plan but not really have someone who helps you modify it, and then if you don't execute, then you're nothing. So you have this breakthrough, you have a little bit of a plan, a little bit of strategy. We worked out a little bit here and there because that was my life at the time. I'd train clients, I'd work out, and then I'd train more clients.
Yep.
So we were always in sync there. But what happens as you're getting momentum through that summer? What are some of the things you learned? And what are some of the things you experienced? And how do you start changing?
Yeah. Well, the great thing is that life gives you breadcrumbs. And so that leg workout was a breadcrumb. And after that, I was like, I just want to know everything. I want to know how you train. And I had the gall to ask you if I could train with you. Like, actually train with you and learn from you, essentially, even though I probably didn't say that. I was just like, can I train with you? Like, can I do this workout with you? And so I started to learn through osmosis, through doing it with you. And at that point, then it started to build momentum, because then I remember it was like our third workout. I don't remember what we were training, but it was our third workout together. And you had told me, like, if you slow me down, I'm going to have to ask you to go work out somewhere else because I'm training for a competition. And I'm like, okay, I gotta like stay focused and get after it, like be right there with him. And I did a good job. You hit PRs on those workouts, but I stuck with you. And the third workout or so, you had taken progress photos because you were prepping for a competition. And thinking back, I had never taken any type of like progress photos, at least not seriously. When I had lost like 10 or 20 pounds or something, I'd be like, oh, let me take a photo in clothes or something. But I didn't think take progress photos along the way or take initial photos. So I had the thought, well, I'm going to take progress photos. And I took off my shirt and I was wearing a sports bra and pants. And I walked over to the mirror when you were in the bathroom after a workout. And I looked in the mirror and I remember I said to myself, I'm going to take this photo and I'm never going to see this person again. I'm never going to see her again. And that made it okay for me to take those initial photos. And that's what we tell a lot of clients too, right? It's, you're going to regret if you don't take photos, for one. But two, just remind yourself that you're never going to see that person again.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love to tell our clients when they first start, is that when you're taking a progress photo, it might feel uncomfortable. You might judge yourself. It's okay. But it's understanding that you're actually making a decision to change from that point, right? We think about a decision, it means to cut off. It means to make it so that you move forward without any regard for what has been. It's decisive. You're moving forward. So for you, it sounds like in that moment, that progress photo was the first moment where you decided, I'm actually going to commit to this.
Yes, truly. And I think that what made that decision so different is that I actually had the knowledge of what to do to be successful. What was going to make this different was that I actually knew what to do. It wasn't Hail Mary, all right, just work harder, grit your teeth. It was, oh, okay, I've been missing pieces. I have the missing pieces now. Let's go get it. And that decision actually felt very internal and very easy. And I actually think that the people who are the most successful, if I'm really thinking about it, like our clients and all the people we've worked with, the people who are the most successful tend to get to that decision-making point and they're like, okay, let's go. It's not like this painful commitment process. It's just, okay, yeah, we can do this.
Well, and what's great is because it seems like it was easier to make the decision because you had so many instances where what you were going to return to was not better than what you were going to move forward to. Like I wasn't going to, I think it sometimes people have this misconception that I'm going to lose all the things in my life and I'm giving up all these things.
That's true.
And that makes it so hard because it's not obvious that the future is going to look better.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm going to quit smoking, but I'm still going to be anxious. So I'm not going to quit. And it's like, yeah, you have to go to the other side where you find something more positive, more empowering, more pleasurable to move towards.
Yeah.
For you, though, you start to get momentum at this point. Like you really start to pick up speed. So you start strength training, you start tracking your food, you start understanding macros and how to eat. What's the actual explosion forward? Like what starts to happen as you're gaining momentum? What are some of the outcomes and how do you start to feel?
Yeah. Once you make that decision, then it's not what people think it is. It's not go all out and start working out 1 million hours a day and see 5 pounds of weight loss a week. It's an internal change, for one. And then two, it's actually small intentional behaviors that follow. But it's this feeling of momentum. So what I did was I wrote down my starting weight. I took those starting photos. And then I said, okay, every week I'm just going to track my progress. And actually, people might be surprised to hear, like the first couple weeks, I lost about 1 pound per week. But then the third week, I gained weight. And I was like, what? Excuse me? I'm working hard. Like I'm doing the right things. I'm getting in there. And that was actually the beautiful part where I spoke to you about it instead of giving up or saying, okay, this must not be right. I spoke to you and I said, why did my weight go up? And you're like, well, how did you eat yesterday? And we had dialogue around my nutrition and you were like, hey, well, and you made like a tiny little tweak. You're like, hey, you should eat more berries. You said something really small and random, but to me it meant, oh, I'm still doing the right things. I just need to make a tiny tweak. And then every week from there forward, I lost 1 pound per week. And I started to feel alive. I was like, I can do this. I started to see progress every week, not just on the scale, but I started to get stronger every week. I started to really understand this whole strength training thing. I trained with barbells. I started to just feel alive. And all I wanted to do was to get more of those things that made me feel alive. It was such a strong contrast from trying to remain who I was and just work out sometimes, because it almost felt like I was describing earlier, like when I was first, quote unquote, trying to do this, I was almost trying to live 2 lives. I was trying to be this party girl who everybody liked, who drank all the time, who ate whenever and went out for late night food. and trying to work out in the daytime and be this like studious, disciplined person. And it was like those two identities were just totally in conflict, keeping me at zero. And so once I decided, like, I'm going to get this body, I'm going to be fit, I am going to do this, and I don't care what it takes, I'm going to figure it out. I just started to gain momentum and start to see this is who I actually want to be, which was so powerful.
And when you say this is who I want to be, who was that person? Versus, because it's a change in identity, right?
Yeah.
So there's a change in your identity. It sounds like the change in identity is a shift from I am this college person, this college girl, this college student who's drinking on the weekend. I'm trying to also lose weight so I can feel good when I go out. That's kind of an identity, like partier.
Yeah, just feel a little better.
Feeling also like trying to maintain the status quo with everyone else around you. This is who I am for them. Who did you become for yourself? Or who was that person you moved towards?
It was just someone who was confident. I wanted to be someone who could stand up for herself, do whatever she pleased, and have no second guesses about it, even if she was standing alone. And at that time, that was a really important identity shift because I actually, for a while, I saw a lot of people fall out of my life. A lot of people started to tell me like I was crazy. They started to not invite me to the parties. I started to just kind of almost become outcasts in a way from my original. And there were people who were sweet and nobody was mean to me or said like, oh, you're ridiculous. But it was like a slow, I saw people fall away and you can feel that.
Well, I remember you talking to me because it changed the way your friend group was, like the guys. And maybe that was because I was around, but I remember like you stopped getting invited. They stopped wanting you around, and they would make little comments about your fitness thing, and oh, it's just a little fitness thing, and ooh, and it became almost like a joke to them, which is fascinating because people only really do that consistently when it's their insecurity.
Right.
It's, a little joke here and there. We're all playing with each other. That's fine. But it's usually the people who are going to fester on it or make you, oh, you should really have a drink right now. Or why aren't you drinking? Oh, my God, you're such a loser. It's like because they feel uncomfortable with the fact that you're not doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that the biggest area of conflict for people is they have an image of who you are, because when they have an image of who you are, it means something about them, and then you change and it shatters their view, and so they try to hold you back.
Yeah, well, I think that it's this, I think it's a typical human behavior to try to identify danger or something that's out of place, because you build this identity around yourself and then around your friends, and you're all comfortable around each other. You can expect certain things from each other. And when one of those little pieces of the puzzle changes drastically, you start to feel uncomfortable, right? And I think about that specific example of maybe somebody's drinking and then the other person that they always drink with isn't drinking. And so that person just feels like, wait, what are you doing? This isn't how we do things. Like, and it's just uncomfortable. It's not necessarily malicious, but to your point, it's just that insecurity. It's like, whoa, what's happening? This isn't normal. And I got a lot of that.
But you also got a lot of positive too.
I got so much positive reinforcement, and that was also because I was open about it. I was sharing it. I was alive by it. And if I were to share a lesson from that, it's when you make that initial commitment to yourself and your health, you don't have to go shout it from the rooftops. Like I said, it's a very internal switch. It's, I'm going to cut this off. I'm going to learn this. I'm going to become the best version of myself, whatever it takes, however long it takes. When that's the commitment for one, that's much more powerful. It's easier to make that switch. That's what a lot of people start with. They're like, I just can't make that switch. I can't make that switch. It's like, it just has to be, I'm going to become the best version of myself. I'm committed to that, however long it takes. Not 3 months. But then once you make that commitment, you don't have to go scream it from the rooftops. Make your progress, prove it to yourself, get in that zone, find safe people that you can celebrate with. Because I had my best friend who was the person who had originally started to introduce me to the gym a little bit. And then I was even sharing it on social media after I got some progress under my belt. Once I got the first 20 pounds off, which took about 6 months, I shared that and I said, all right, we're in this journey. And I put that on my Facebook and my Instagram. And it got so much positive feedback. And you posted it too. And it just got hundreds and hundreds of people that were like, oh my gosh, great job. Amazing. This is so inspiring. And that was the fuel I needed to just say, like, thank you. Yes, I am super proud of myself. So it's the lesson is, when you first get started, commit to what feels powerful for you. Don't feel like you have to go force yourself or shout it from the rooftops. Really think, what am I committing to? And why is that worth it? And then make some progress, get some progress under your belt, get momentum, share it with people who can celebrate with you, that you're comfortable and safe with. And then once you get it, once you're in that groove and you're really seeing strides, find ways to share it bigger. Find ways to expand out and say, this is who I am. This is who I've chosen to be. You don't have to be ashamed or embarrassed or fearful. It's like, you've proven it to yourself. Now go show it. Go talk about it.
Yeah, if people are allowed to showcase the new car they bought or the pants that they got,
Fantastic
or
example.
the
house,
the drink that they're drinking at the bar, it's like, why not post yourself at the gym?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Why would you care? Well, because then people will know that it's like, screw those people. It's part of who you are. This is who I am.
Yeah.
Right? When I first started posting my bodybuilding pictures, people would be like, that's so strange. Why are your clothes off? I was like, it's what I have to do for bodybuilding. It's like, you have to take photos because you need to be able to see how am I changing. It's not about the scale. It's about the photos. I have to see it. I remember the first time I posted a photo after I'd lost like 25, maybe 40 pounds at this point, because you could start seeing, I was blown away.
Was it this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that photo.
I was blown away. I was like, look at what I look like. But I had been working on that for years. And so, but it starts with the little thing here and the little thing there and the little thing there.
Compounds.
And I wanted to share this about your story because I want to pull it all together, because you do this 6 months and focus time, you lost
20 pounds.
Yeah, 20, 25 pounds or something along the lines of that. And obviously the next phase is where it gets really exciting. But it was so important to realize that there was months and years before that, quite frankly. Years where you weren't happy, you didn't love yourself, you tried and you failed, you tried this way, you failed, you tried this way, you failed. You kept going back to the same damn thing, thinking, oh my God, I'm doing whatever I have to do, and it's not working. It's like, I'm doing everything. It's like, well, you're trying one strategy.
Yeah, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, you're just not doing it right? It's like trying to learn how to play guitar without any idea of how the chords work.
Totally.
And you just keep picking it up and banging away, and you're like, oh my God, I just can't figure it out. It's like, well, maybe you just don't have the right strategy. So I wanted to put that in point, because people will be like, oh, well, there's a 6-month transformation. It's like, no, there was like a 4-year transformation.
Yeah, and then the 6-month transformation, that's where a lot of people stop. It's like they lose 20 pounds and they're like, okay, nice.
And so you lose the 20 pounds. What happens next? Because that's when you made it permanent.
Well, the vision was so much bigger than 6 months. And it's something that I wish I could just drag and drop into every single person. When you first actually commit to who you want to be, you can't put a time frame on it. You have to say, I am going to build the dream body, or I'm going to be the best version of myself, or I'm going to keep working on this until I genuinely feel comfortable and confident, no matter how long it takes. That is, honestly, that's probably the only reason I kept going after 6 months, because I had made progress. And yes, there was elements that were addicting and exciting, but from day one, I was like, this might take me a year. And I already had that expectation in my mind that I was going to work on this, and that if it took a year, it was worth it. I already had that conversation with myself. So once we get to 6 months and we post that, I'm like, all right, we're just at the beginning. And that was my mindset. It wasn't, nobody else told me that. I had that story for myself, and thank goodness it happened to be a positive story. But I get to the end of 6 months and I genuinely felt like I'm only halfway there. Like, let's keep going. Let's dig our heels into this. And I went, and the crazy thing was, at that 6 month point, I was actually about to ship off to Australia. I was about to go study abroad. And for a lot of people, you and I were talking about this the other day, but for a lot of people, when they study abroad, it's during some parties and meeting new guys and doing all the crazy stuff and not really studying and all. But I saw that as an opportunity to relocate myself and form whatever identity I wanted. And I remember being on the plane. It's like a 24-hour plane ride to Australia. You and I had just said our goodbyes, and it was so sad. But I was on the plane, and I thought to myself, I can be whoever I want here. Like, nobody knows who I am. And you think about that experience of how like some of your relationships start to fall away. And that ended up being this beautiful container of growth, because I said, I'm going to do anything I want. I'm not going to wait for somebody else to go do it with me, because there's nobody else really with me, except for I had a friend that was going and studying abroad with me. So there was some safety net. But I got to Australia, totally new. I was in the middle of this journey, and I get to this, I've had a dorm room. There's no kitchen. So I bought a grill. I was like, all right, I'm going to figure this out. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a gym. And there was a little bit of panic at first. Like, what am I going to do? I don't have anything. I find a gym on campus. And this is where, again, breadcrumbs are given. Because I find a gym kind of on campus. It's not a part of the school system, so it's not included with the fact that I'm a student. It's like $120 a month or something. At the time, I was like, I'm not going to pay that, because I'm like a student living on credit cards and I can't get a job in a foreign country. So they were hosting this contest for a free gym membership, I guess, for starting students. And there was only going to be one membership. And all you had to do was take a picture of yourself doing something in front of this little backdrop. So I did this little picture. I posted it. I shared it with them. And lo and behold, I win the free gym membership for a full semester. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is my sign. I am meant to do this. I am meant to become this fit person. And it was just such a gift, because this was not your average Planet Fitness gym. This was an elite gym, like high level athletes and power lifters, and it just people of every different sport, swimmers, like I said, power lifters, bodybuilders. Like, there were so many different excellent athletes and trainers there. So this was an environment that promoted health and well-being. This was not a college gym where people are going on the weekend because they drank too much yesterday. It was just a totally different environment that I had never experienced before. And it was great, because all I want to do is be there now, because I have this exciting environment. I'm like, all I want to do is be at the gym. All I want to do is be at the gym. And so I spent quite a lot of that semester at that gym. And you saw it. It was a great, great gym.
Yeah.
Right? It was a great environment for growth. It was a great positive place to be.
And it didn't mean, and you didn't become so obsessive that you didn't go out.
Yeah,
you didn't experience, it's not that you didn't experience Australia. You still had the beautiful experience, but it was more of an adult experience. It was, I'm an adult. I'm living in a foreign country.
I'm going to do what I want.
And here's how I want to live my life.
Here's how I want to live my life.
I don't need to go out and party with you every weekend and get drunk.
Yeah, I went out sober a bunch of times and had a blast.
Yeah. So it was this new way of living
Yeah.
that was a maturing of you becoming the person you want to be, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good way to put it. And it was fun. And I think that's also something that's really important to learn, is when you're going on a fitness journey. Yes, the beginning is probably really challenging, right? Like I said, those first 3 weeks, I was like, is it not working? What's going on? The first 6 months, I kept it to myself. Honestly, I barely even looked in the mirror, because I was like, you're just going to have to do the work right now. 6 months later, I make that first big milestone. Then I relocate myself. But then I start having fun. And I'm just like, I'm having a blast. And the great thing was that when you start to have fun with it and it starts to become a part of who you are, you receive that feedback. People start seeing you differently, or as you'd like to be seen. I remember as I got into this and I started going to the gym all the time, because I had the free gym membership, people started referring to me as like the fit girl. Like, oh, Lindsay, yeah, that girl who's really fit. And I'd be like, nice. That's me. That's me now. And it was just so fun. It was so fun. It was so exciting. And I hope everybody can get to that. I pray that everybody gets to that point if they want to go on a fitness journey, because that's what you're working for, is to get to the point where it's a part of who you are and you love it. And it's something that you don't even think, oh, is this sustainable? It's just like, oh, I love this. Like, I'm always going to make time for this.
And when you talk about loving it, we talked at the beginning of the podcast about a lot of times people struggle with that loving of themselves while they're changing.
Yeah.
What was your take on maybe your motivation or your fuel? Because a lot of times people will use the I hate where I am, I hate myself, even if it's unconscious. That's what's driving them. What were you tapping into instead?
So if I zoom out, because my transformation originally really took almost a whole year, like 8 months, 8 to 12 months to lose that initial, I'll say 30 pounds, because then we did another 10 when I prepped for a bodybuilding show. But it took 8 months or so. So it wasn't like overnight. It took some time. At the beginning, saying like, I absolutely hate where I am, honestly, can be an essential part of the process. But that was only until I took those first photos. The moment I took those first photos, I shifted without consciously trying to do it, but I'm sharing it as a lesson. I shifted to acceptance. I said, I'm not going to worry about how my body looks right now. I'm not going to beat it up. I'm not going to tear it apart. I'm going to wear sweatshirts when I work out. And that's okay, because it will change. So I accepted it. I didn't try to BS myself or say like, oh, I love my body. I love my body. Like, I didn't try to overcorrect it. I just said, this is how it is right now. You're going to work on it. You're improving. And then that was kind of the motivation at the front was, you're going to get better and you're going to feel so much better. And I just had to keep reminding myself of that. And the motivation was, and you're going to get better. Like, it wasn't an option. It was like, you're going to put it in the work and you're going to get better. After you start getting that momentum, then the motivation is, this is fun. Why wouldn't I do this? Whether it's prepping my food or tracking my food or working out really hard or going and doing yoga, whatever I was doing, I think that the motivation was just, I'm so close. Like, let's actually get quote unquote all the way there. And to me, all the way there was, I want to feel comfortable and confident in my body. So that was always the motivation. But the kickstart motivation was, I hate where I am. I hate this body. I hate that I don't feel comfortable in my own body and that I'm changing myself for other people. And then as I got into it, it started with the neutrality and acceptance for quite a while. And that's that intermediary stage that I think, I don't know if it's talked about enough in a productive fashion. People try to say, don't hate yourself, just love yourself. Don't hate yourself, just love yourself. Love yourself, love yourself. It's like, you can love the fact that you are improving, and you can love yourself for saying yes to your own goals. You can love yourself for all of these things and love who you are. But I have kind of a controversial perspective on this, because if you aren't behaving like someone you like, it's going to be really hard to love yourself. Like, my behavior was not someone I wasn't behaving like someone who loves themselves. So to say, oh, I just love myself, it would be a lie.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe that's not true. Maybe I'm not wording that well.
No, I don't think you love yourself. If you were to treat yourself like someone you loved, you wouldn't force them to eat McDonald's every night.
Yeah.
If you were to look at someone, like if I love you, right? I do, by the way. But if I look at you and I say, well, this is a person that I love, well, what would I do for them in order for me to take care of them? I wouldn't be drinking on the weekends. I wouldn't be eating garbage. I wouldn't be saying mean things to you, right? Like, there's that fine line of like, yeah, I would accept that there's these behaviors externally that are negative. There's also these behaviors internally that are negative.
Yes.
Right? So it's that whole thing. If it's self-love, it's the whole picture.
It's the whole picture.
It's not just saying nice things to yourself to make you feel good.
Yeah.
You don't bullshit yourself.
Yeah.
Right? You say, hey, I missed the mark there.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the things that people get wrong about Jesus, is they think that he was this hippie who just loved everyone and that was it, period. But one of the things that Jesus did is he told the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And
Reproof and correct.
you tell the truth to people you love, especially yourself. Now, the truth is neutral. The truth isn't you're a piece of crap and you should probably just go kill yourself and, oh my God, like, I told you you'd fail. It's like, that's not true. It's like, okay, well, this is what I'm doing. Here's how it's working. I don't like it, right? Like, and this isn't the best thing for me. It's that very neutral questioning that allows us to see that, hey, there's something positive that we can change in our life.
Yeah, and it really, it's just such a change of perspective, because it's not that you need to just love yourself. It's like, start acting like somebody who loves themselves, and you'll actually start to love yourself. I had to stop drinking so much. I had to stop almost being sloth-like. I had to stop feeling sorry for myself. And I had to start doing some of those things that people who love themselves do, which is take care of their body, which is speak kindly or at least more neutrally towards myself. It was get around good people, seek out deep and meaningful relationships with people. Don't float on the surface, right? And it's all those layers, which is, it's not that I discovered all of those consciously throughout that first year, but if I look back, that's really what happened.
Well, what just occurred to me too is an insight that I think is really helpful for men. Men don't need to learn to love themselves. They need to learn to respect themselves.
Makes sense.
And I think that that's where this message falls on deaf ears. It's like, well, how would you behave if you were someone you respected? How do the people that you respect behave? Why don't you act more like them? Well, would you respect yourself? If you looked at yourself in the mirror, would you respect that guy? Yeah. If you saw the way you were treating yourself on the weekend, or the way you're talking to your employees, or the way you're talking to your wife, the things you're doing when people aren't looking, would you respect that man? Probably not. So it's a really good insight too. I shared that if someone's hearing this, they're like, oh yeah, that might also be something that's helpful. Because I don't think that men seek love. They seek respect.
Yeah, right? Well, marriage, that's a base level principle, right? Is men need respect, women need love from one another. So it's a very good point. But yeah, it's when you talk about, okay, well, what's the balance between creating your dream body or pushing yourself to reach your fitness goals and loving yourself? It is, you can accept that you don't like where you're at, and that's essential. Accept that you don't like where you're at, and then decide what you're going to do about it, right? Use that as initial fuel, then accept that you might have to work for a little bit before you like what you see in the mirror. Find neutrality, find acceptance. I gave some tips for that earlier. And then over time, start to really treat yourself well, which comes through celebration when you do well. Meaning you hit a PR, or you challenge yourself to work out when you didn't want to, or you put the food back because you realized you weren't really hungry, right? Whatever, or you ate to satiate, whatever it is, right? Celebrate when you make progress. Gratitude for what your body is able to do, what you're capable of today, because you and I both know it could be a lot worse and more painful. Be really grateful for the things you do have and what your body can do. Reinforce that. And then keep challenging yourself to get out of your comfort zone. Because the moment you're comfortable, you have to say, okay, I'm really grateful that I'm more comfortable in my body. What's next? And that last piece, I think, really ties it together. Because at no stage in my journey have I said, I'm good. There's no need to improve or change or develop myself. At no point have I reached complacency.
And I'll add this too, just to anchor it in. The challenge can also be a new form of training. It can be a new skill that requires you to be less physical and more introspective, like mindfulness or meditation, or journaling, like the whole process is a self-development journey. And you're always looking and saying, well, I could clean up this area a little bit. I need to work on this area. And I think that's what makes it so you don't get complacent. And then the fitness, the training is the anchor that allows you to constantly connect with yourself.
Beautifully said. If you can see fitness as a journey of developing yourself and fitness goals, weight loss, whatever the goal is, if you can shift and see it as a way to develop yourself rather than a goal that exists in a silo, it's going to be a much more fulfilling, empowering journey that makes you love yourself, that builds your confidence, and that makes you unshakable, quite frankly, because it's always going to anchor you back to what you're capable of. And if I can give one thing away, that's what I would give.
Love that. Is there any other pieces of advice that you would give? Because I think this is a really great place to tie it down.
I would agree. It's a good place to tie it down. I think that as you listen to this, figure out where you are in your journey, because the only reason we like stories, other than the fact that they bring up emotions in us, is because we see ourselves in the story. If you're listening to this, you probably are on some type of fitness journey right now. Or maybe you really want to be, but you're probably already on it then. If you really want to be, you just haven't taken the right action steps, right? Where are you at in your journey? Are you at that frustrated, sticky point where, man, nothing's working for you? Are you at the point where you already made that decision of, hey, I want to become the best version of myself. I need to learn this. Are you at the point where you've made some progress and now you're at that crossroads where you could say what's next and keep going, or you could settle in? Or are you at the stage where you've achieved the dream? You've already done it. And now you have the opportunity to say also, what's next? Figure out where you are and what the next step is for you. Is it seeking a guide? Is it filling a knowledge gap? Is it making a decision? Is it asking yourself a simple question of what's next? How much more do I have in me? Or is it, I'm so proud of myself, I did it. Now where do I want to take it from here? If you can answer those questions, then I think that you'll be in a really good place.
Amazing. So we hope this has been helpful. We hope this gives you some inspiration, some motivation, something that you can turn to guide you through this process of you becoming better. If you love this podcast, give us a thumbs up on YouTube and let us know in the comment section what you took away, what you loved, what was something that was great for you. And if you're on Apple, give this video a 5-star review so that we know that we're doing a good job. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. And now go out and conquer your day.
Cheers.
Cheers.